Hi guys, welcome back to Old Time Religion. Stick at the place or target stain, or nothing like a jerk approach, try to find what room he's in. Let's do that one. A Finsky in the hands of a Belloc got me the room number, so I made my way up the elevator. It was there and I realized I had no idea what I was going to say to the man. Sure, I'd gotten into similar situations before without a clue what I would say. Waiting it was something just came naturally to me, which was one of the many talents that made being a private dick such a good career choice. Besides this unerring capacity to make people angry and complete like a desire to punch you once a clock me, but my own. This is different enough to give me a pause though. Would you say to a man he's been playing the heroic knight errant in your town, may have been doing it in Augsburg, Germany a few dozen years ago, may even have fought in the Crusades. The dean of door broke my chain of thought, so I stepped down to the hall and made my way down to his door, room 314. It was quiet with no lights on, but I knocked anyway. I come this far in this business was strange enough that I didn't feel too bad about getting him up. I apologized later. I wanted answers now. Unfortunately, it didn't look like answers would be forthcoming after knocking loudly a few more times. Figured low and hers wasn't there. If he was half of what Saul thought him to be, there's no way he was asleep in there. Not a man I've known. He's been in long-term combat situations, can see through the kind of pounding notes given that door. I don't even hesitate anymore when I go for lockpicks. I gave up on moral clowns about snooping into folks' personal business after a few weeks of starting this gig. You don't eat if you don't find answers as a detective, and detectives are the biggest violators of privacy in the world. I got through the simple hotel lock in about 30 seconds. Damn, I'm good. Too bad no one gives out prizes for picking locks. They give out arrest warrants, sure, but not prizes. Saddlebags is the first I saw it. I really registered the man apparently carried out most of his personal belongings in saddlebags, and they looked pretty damn old to boot. The rest of the room was relatively untouched. She not even laid on the bed yet. From what I could tell at first glance, I didn't get many more glances before trouble came knocking, literally. Who are you, and what are you doing in this room? The accent wasn't all what I expected, neither was the look of the guy. Well, the three guys really assessed how many were making their way through the open door, swarthy complexions, bushy mustaches. I could tell where they were from, but clearly and certainly none of them was Richard, the fellow I was looking for. The ones who spoke kept talking. As one of his companions closed the door, and I was growing more convinced that he was probably Greek as I listened. I asked you a question, man. I suggest you answer. I could ask you the same thing, friend. His smile was gleaming wide. There was a real mirth in it. There was also some menace. I wasn't sure, but I felt like we were headed for some violence, and the fact that one of his compatriots was following the handle of a long knife at his belt reinforced that idea of mine. He went on and adopted a slightly more casual demeanor as he moved slowly past me and stood on the edge of the bed. The man who closed the door stayed behind it, also revealing a long knife under the coat he was wearing. The fidgety one shifted position enough to ensure he could reach me in a couple of steps if he had to. I don't think you're one of the local police, friend. He seemed to be working out what to do about me even as he spoke. I am going to guess that the local bishop hired you to look into our mutual target, which makes you a perfect detective. It also makes you someone who no longer needs to be involved in this matter. The local diocese no longer has jurisdiction over the unnatural one. That wasn't getting anything like a name out of the talkative one, who was certainly let me in on some things I didn't know. Apparently he was connected to the upper levels of the Catholic Church, or at least some group that thought they had authority. This guy's also apparently agreed there was something strange about the Richard Lowenhurst or whatever it was. They didn't like it. The way he said unnatural made that pretty clear. Figured I better clear things up with these guys. I just had to play along for now, see what else I could learn. I'm not able to take these guys and doubt they were expecting it. I didn't like to look at the situation at all. It was time to make a move and get out. Let's clear things up. Alright, guys. I strolled in the casual way towards the window, watching fidgety. Even as he watched me, he moved to keep his position relative to me. Both knew if he came to blows, it was him and me first. Not working for Bishop. Someone else must be looking to the guy staying in this room. So why do you want me out of the way, mister? Mister. You may call me James. He really didn't look like a James to me. And I may call you. Fair was fair. It sounded like they couldn't find out easy enough. Harvey Jenkins. Fidgeting door guy exchanged glances and both looked at James. Yeah, I have a problem with too many people having heard my name lately. You're not unknown to us, Mr. Jenkins. In fact, we respect your accomplishments as a fellow warrior against the unnatural world. However, we must again insist that you detach yourself from this matter. Please inform whoever you're working for that you can no longer be involved in this case. We gladly compensate you for the loss of your time here. We will tolerate no interference in a Harley mission. This is starting to look really messy, and I wonder if I can get out breaking anything or having anything broken tonight. I gotta tell you, fellow, that I might have my own code, and in holy best of mine, when someone pays me for a job, I tend to stay with it until it's done. I had a glance from James. Door guy stepped aside and opened the way out. Mr. Jenkins, for the sake of your continued health and your soul, I pray you reconsider, for even a fellow warrior may not be spared if he interferes in the work we must do. Fidgeting and I spared each other one more glance as I headed for the door. I was pretty sure he was actually looking forward to testing himself against me. I hate guys like that. I didn't say anything else as I made my way out into the hall and down to the lobby. I had some thinking to do. Time to call it a night. Trouble dreams about stories of blood made me for a rough night. Eggs, bacon, and coffee got me going. Last night's shenanigans made it pretty clear what I had next. It was time to talk to the bishop, whether he likes it or not. I never wanted to be anything more than a simple parish priest, Mr. Jenkins. You should understand that up front. Bishop Brian McLarty was a small man. He was a bit more chunky when I first met him, but it looked like he was lost some weight since we had last had dealings. Rory takes a toll on everyone and shows more than usual on him. I said drinking the coffee his secretary hadn't made. She was a bit stiff and formal, but seemed glad to see me today. Yeah, sure, Padre. We don't always get the easy road we want. Sometimes life decides we gotta get more. Not life, Harvey. God has to put us on the road he has for us, or those of us who choose to listen to him. They don't really have a choice, free will or no. If we listen, we follow, and that's how I find myself responsible for the spiritual well-being of a city that seems to be found drowning itself in sin. All I could do was listen and nod vaguely. I am not a religious man. I'm sure not Catholic. Don't get me wrong. There's no way to go through the things I have seen, the things I've seen, and fought the things I've fought, and now believe in higher powers and things beyond. I just don't think it all works as nice as me as Father Brian would like. I don't think it all works quite exactly how the way any one group thinks. Truth is a murky thing when you start talking about the unseen world. Yeah, I've definitely been spending a lot of time with Mama Vante, starting to like her even. McLaury turned to the window and looked out on the street as he kept talking. I know these men he ran to last night. They are part of a secret within what is known as the Knights of Malta. That triggered a memory from my schooling days. You mean the Knights Hospitaller? Essentially, yes, so the order has grown and become more complex as well, more politically involved in some areas. This sect, it would seem, has the patronage of it at least a few archbishops and cardinals, those who feel it's the church's divine duty to deal with the supernatural threats in an absolute and uncompromising terms as possible. The sect is a secretive. There's no official name or record of it, but I am told they are called the Sons of the Brother of Christ, or more simply the Sons of James. I had enough Bible learning to know that St. James was often considered the brother of Christ, born to Mary after Jesus was born. Lots of consternation in the theological circles all about all that, but such matters were for scholars and priests. I am more personally concerned, so the Sons of James Padre. He always winced a little when I called him that, but he never corrected me. I always figured the part of him that still had a sense of humor got a kick out of it. What's their holy mission all about? What does that have to do with this Richard fella? He turned back away from the window, sat at his desk and faced me directly. They are here to kill him, Harvey. They are here to kill the doomed knight. This way has Saul gotten me into Padre. The story goes that Richard the Lionheart was a proud and vainglorious man who spilled entirely too much blood in the name of the Lord. Unlike so many of his predecessors, however, he had an epiphany near the end of his days, and he went out into the wilderness to fast and pray for many days. This is it in your history books, mighty. What I am revealing is a secret church canon that could get me defrocked for sharing. But at this point, you deserve to know. If you're going to follow through with all of this, and I know you well enough to know you will, you deserve to know everything I know. It will help you. There are many conflicting accounts about what happened in that time. Various records are held in the Apocryph Library of the Vatican's vaults. Many believe he went through a trial testing similar to that with Job, torn between the tempter and the Lord. Others simply tell of his woeful pleas for their repentance and his insistence that he might not be permitted to leave the mortal coil without someone to make amends. Whatever happened, it would appear that his prayers were answered, though perhaps not as he had hoped. He paused as the secretary came in and refilled our coffee. She spoke briefly with them about the mundane church business, which left me a few moments to my thoughts. Was this what I was facing? I honestly had no idea what my future was as far as lifespan, how much that rising from the dead basis really affected me. It was pretty clear I was harder to kill than the average guy, but I was immortal. Up to now, I've been less than interested in really asking too many questions about it all. Perhaps I was going to have to stop avoiding and find out, but not today. Sorry, Harvey, the day-to-day continues, and honestly, it's what's keeping me grounded when such heady matters are at hand. Believe me, Padre, I understand all too well. Kind of wish I was still telling a woman's gambling and philandering husband rather than an apparently immortal crusader in the church just doesn't want to kill him. McGlade chuckled. You really are a sharp one, Mr. Jenkins. You hit the nail right on the head. You know the old saw about being careful what you wish for? Richard the Lionheart begged for a way to atone for all the blood on his hands. It is said that there are many of my superiors who believe he will walk the earth until the day comes that he had saved as much blood as he wouldn't spill or caused to be spilled. I let out a long, slow whistle at that, and Padre nodded. Indeed, Harvey, though he was a prolific warrior in his own right, the truth that he's ordered and was responsible for countless deaths across the Middle East and Europe. those who know of his existence are generally in agreement that he will serve his doom quite literally to the end of time. That is, unless the sons of James succeed in putting him down to them, those like them, Richard represents an abomination that stains the church. Their sect believes that his immortality comes from the devil, not God. Therefore, his eternal life and soul are forfeit and be cast into the abyss at the earliest possible opportunity. I honestly didn't know what to think or believe as I sat there. It was all just so much fairy tale nonsense on one hand. On the other, I shot demons in the face with blessed shotguns, so who was I to judge? So what now, Bishop McLarty? Harvey, there's no what now for me in this. They came to see me yesterday as if proper in such a manner as considering this is my diocese. However, they made it clear in no uncertain terms and with the Holy Writ from the Vatican itself back to them that I have nothing to do with the situation whatsoever, nor am I the permanent Richard Sanctuary in any one of my churches. My hands are tied and I have too many responsibilities to many people to oppose them. Besides, it's not like I really can do much in this anyway. I want to argue with him and insist that he should decide what he believes is set up for, but I couldn't really. There really wasn't a whole lot he could do that would amount to much beyond the gift of knowledge he'd already given me. It was like someone with that mentality this Richard apparently had would come asking for the local church to get involved. Wait a minute, Saul told me he saw Richard leaving here the other day. He was obviously going to talk to you about something. There seemed to be a moment of panic for McLarty, but he quickly composed himself. I gave him a hard look, but then he just shook his head. Sorry, Harvey, I am so used to thinking in terms of secrets and holding back things where matters like yours are concerned. I forget that you were one I need not to do that with. Much of his reason for coming was to give his confessions, which you know I cannot speak of. Just what you don't want to know, most of it anyway. He visibly pressed a shoulder, Lord in heaven, I can't believe some of what he said, Padre. Sorry, well, I'm not sure how helpful this will be, but he asked me a lot about the orphanages and missing children. Told him where the orphanages I knew of were, but I knew nothing about any significant reports of children got missing. I wish I had more to help you with, Mr. Jenkins, but I was already up and headed for the door. You did great, Padre. Look after your flock, and I'll handle the rest. Whew. Okay. I think I'll go. Yeah, let's go to the orphanages and see if they got a visit from the dude or not. After a great deal of footwork and phone calls, I figured out there had been a tender for nobody reports from the call of orphanages in the city over the last couple of weeks, many more than usual, which had all of the administrators in uproar. Okay, things are running away. Okay, yeah. Kids probably don't like it there, man. Come on. Most of them were worried about their charitable donations or societies tanking, but at least a few were good enough to be genuinely concerned about the kids and wanted me to find them. It wasn't until I got to the house of the Good Shepherd, however, that I discovered things had become more sinister, more desperate. The scent of drying blood and other stenches I know only too well mean that a lot of death lies ahead. Wafted out front of the door, which was cracked open. As soon as I walked inside, I saw the first two bodies: a woman just like a matron I expect to be in an orphanage, and a man in work clothes meant for attending the garden. So was the rake he'd clearly been trying to use as a weapon against whoever had killed him. The two of them were cut up horribly, gashes all over their bodies. It looked like they had been the worst knife fight I've ever seen, except I knew right away those were knife wounds. They were from a sword. The children are all gone, each and every one. You will find only death here, Mr. Jenkins. I spun around fast, handling my pistol. I had it pointed to the source of the voice, but the man I faced only stood in the door, the light from the outside framing his silhouette. He had on robes of some kind, and my eyes adjusted. It seemed pretty clear that they were that strange archaic variety the really hardcore Catholics wear. I intend you no harm. If I did, you would be dead. The Son of James are flawless in such matters. And instead, I offer you this warning. The cursed one is a monster who brings such death. Wherever he goes, he must be put down. He will be put down, and his soul cast into the abyss where it belongs. These are yet more souls he must account for eternally in the fires of hell. Said nothing. There are times within a single word in any direction won't give the whole game away. This seemed like one of those times. Walk away, Mr. Jenkins. You have done good work, and I will see you continue until your time for release as I handed off horses to act on that before you are due for removal. That was enough. Due for, hey, heed me, Harvey Jenkins. Your part in the story is over. Go home. We will deal with this evil utterly and finally. Then, what? It didn't even let me get to read that yet. Damn. Then he pulled the door closed, sending the whole place into pitch black. I ran and threw it back open, but he was gone. Too many people had dealt with that trip down. I needed to learn it. Sergeant Bukowski was a typical cop for three reasons. For one thing, he wasn't Irish or even Celtic. He was polished, second generation from the old country. Shit, sorry guys. So he's from the old country, thinking he'd been in the job for over a decade. Still hadn't seemed completely beaten down by all of it. Finally, Sergeant Bukowski, whatever, was different, especially for big easy guys, because he actually didn't hate seeing me walk through that person door. Jenkins, you brought me something sweet, yes? He said she was still pretty thick, though sometimes I thought he put it on as an act. I tossed him a big bag of big nest that sat heavily in a chair next to his. Age and bad living had taken some toll away, but the desk became Bukowski's permanent beat when something really ugly in the sewers took a chunk out of his left calf as he was dragging a kid out of the place. Got himself a metal, a mostly cushy job, easy street if you don't count the constant pain and the nightmares. I really didn't want to shoot the thing in the face with the full clip giving back and the kid a chance to get away. The good old Doc Carver set whatever it was on fire, and now it's that. We hope. You need something back that we'll do what you can. As usual, Jenkins detectives are already deep in investigation of orphanage murders and kidnappings, so not clear what else you might be involved in. I grinned and stole a pass sheet from his bag. I was wondering if you had any extra reports or news about folks on the street going missing or odd gatherings of homeless or stuff like that. He gave me an odd look. It's the kind of look I've become altogether used to, sadly. How was he always end up in the middle of our strangest stuff, Harvey? How do you even know about this? So I'm right. You could say that, yes, I've been seeing many reports of shanty people asking for help, finding friends and loved ones. Entire groups out by the docks do not gather as they usually do. Even that homeless brass brand everyone likes does not play down the back alleys near the fringe quarter anymore. It's a very strange business, but since most of what these people are not, how should I put this, important, let's not miss words with each other back. They're not important. He sighed heavily. It really wasn't amazing to see a police officer with this history who still cared that much. Yeah, not important, still enough for missing now that even the mayor's wanting the investigation. Ever since that visit with Gospel Divine, he is not wishing chances to be taken. He winked at me, that since he knew as they most of the law enforcement out, I did tell him all something of a favor on that one. Now you tell me about how you get involved in all of this. Oh, you know, I heard that's here and there. You know, you give now more than a big nets. Fair enough, folks that we're working with have a line on some potential bad guys, maybe pulling a kind of an underground movement together. Is Batmuji stuff, is it Mojo back? Yeah, I think so. Then I will tell you that some of the detectives are thinking there's important odd with their old freighter ship that's sitting out in the harbor for more than 2 weeks now. It refuses tugs. They stopped there and insist that it's waiting for it's been important before getting dock in. It's making many people more nervous all the time. When the harbor master sends boats out to inspect, the captain says there is a possible disease on board. They should stay away. Offers to send doctors are refused, but are not called in. But there is a worry people are more clever than I. He let that trail off and gave me a meaningful look. That ain't me, but I can take a hint. I shook his hand firmly and made for the door. Alright, we don't sell you short. You're always known where to buy the best bag nets. Alright, I guess we gotta find Richard. That's the only option we have. The Grand Mason was a nice place, which it had all the hallmarks, including all that fancy woodwork and trim and the carvings of flowers and women at the corners. Unfortunately, it was a part of the town that didn't cater to the nice clientele anymore, though. If you had to stay in this area, Le Grand Mason was probably still your best bet for a decent night's sleep without too much worry for being robbed in the middle of the night. Found a decent spot to watch the main engines just outside a similar rundown cafe. Plenty of tips kept the waitstaff off my back while I parked for a good long while. A surprisingly good po' boy with 2 bag nets and a 4 cups of coffee later, my guy finally made an appearance. He was a big man, tall and lean, even under the duster and other clothes. I could tell he was all muscle, even more than a real athlete than some dick-nick thug. He had long red-brown hair that flowed up from the under of that wide-brimmed hat Saul told me about. He had the look of a hunter about him, though he also looked about dead on his feet. He's clearly been up a really long time. He was obviously headed up to his room for so much needed sleep. I felt bad for the guy, actually. After all, folks like me were all about getting his way, and it looked a lot more like he could use help instead of interference. Help with what, though? That's why I was going to have to interrupt his sleep plans. I stood up, dropped a couple more bills on the little wrought iron table I've been cramped at. I started making my way across the street to follow him out. He threw me for a loop by making a sudden turn, half running towards the alley about around the corner of the building. I had to pick up my own pace to make sure I didn't lose him, which wasn't my idea of the subtle approach I'd hoped for. I moved into the alley, expecting to have it break into a full run. In order to find him, instead, I nearly bowled over him as I ran to his back. Shh. They're saying that your sister's smell will be open, friend. He whispered this as quiet as it was. It somehow went straight to my ears. I held my own tongue like he instructed. I focused on what I could hear and smell. Heavy, almost animalistic breathing. I felt much like a wild animal berserk with fear and rage. Without another word, he slipped his sword and sort of out of scabbard you'd never seen even if it didn't open its duster. He then handed me one of his revolvers, sparing me only the briefest of glances I was struck by just how dark his eyes were and how young his face was for someone who lives this long. I didn't take the revolver. Instead of going for my own pistol in his shoulder holster, he gave me a sharp look and a shake of the head, thrusting the revolver into my hand firmly. It was a fine pistol, and the rabbi was right. An original Cobalt Peacemaker by mint condition. There were pretty some interesting descriptions on it too. He decided to go with it for the moment. He drew the other revolver, and then he started to move slowly down the alley, indicating that it should fall on watch behind us. God, I witness. I had no idea why I was so weirdly following this lunatic who knew what. Let's stick with loners. Displaying an utterly lack of sudden judgment, stuck close to him as we both slowly made our way down the alley. The stench was getting worse by the second, and the heavy breathing turned to a low, rumbling growl. Finally, my new partner spoke, so I was sorry about his accent. For all the world, I kept thinking he sounded like an Englishman trying to do a Western U.S. accent. You stalked me, creature, perhaps to pay me off for what I've done to your kid on an unwise choice, I assure you. For you had stalked the hunter, and now the hunter stalks you. He was completely relaxed. There was an ounce of nervousness in him, from what I could tell. When the pile of cans and boxes exploded, a gigantic mass of fur and claws and teeth came flying out of it at him. He seemed to actually loosen a bit as his reflexes took over. There is a space between the T and the H, and teeth H came flying at. I could have sworn I saw a slight smile on his lips as he raised the revolver and fired a shot. The werewolf, it could be nothing else from all I knew was a fast one. He twisted midair and caught the slug in the shoulder. It looked pretty bad, and it howled like the heavens were burning his soul. Considering the bullet was clearly silver, that wasn't far from the truth, but though I had to think there was something more going on with that shot. A silvery fire shot off from the room. Blessed by a friend of mine, creature's name is Michael, and if you're paying now, you may be blessed to see him soon. He could have been having a reasonable conversation with a colleague about religion or the latest baseball scores by the tone of his voice. He had said that I have ice water in my veins, but there are things that scare me, and I'm not afraid to admit that. I don't think the man with the sword had ever been truly frightened in his life, which made him truly insane in my book. Enraged, aware of how and split the night again, and then he got clever. Instead of pressing the attack directly, he left for the pile of cans off to Richard's left, then flung a big one at him. Caught at least a little off the guard, Richard swung his sword to knock the can down out of the air. The beast tamed it nicely, though, and leapt at the same time, hoping to take advantage of the Crusaders' already engaged blade. Let's shoot the werewolf. Blam! The gun barrel flared and a silvery trail blasted through that night air before stepping to the werewolf made a jump. Richard took advantage of it and rolled under the attack as a werewolf's sword overhead had cleft on the ground where he had stood. I never saw her anything until the hot flash of agony erupted in my upper back. She was a sneaky one, no doubt, and she was all about sneaking up and making a meal out of the man who just blown a hole in the forehead of her apparent mate. The last thing I saw as the red turned to gray was Richard running at her with his sword, and face said that in that grim battle way men have when there's something left with the killing. Then I heard the howling scream and felt her blood pouring all over me as Gray went blessedly to quiet black. Harvey, why I gotta wait till you get holes in you before I get to see you again, child. That smoky, sultry voice slid right into my consciousness as I came around. I couldn't suppress that smile. As I recall, Mom, it was you who could cancel our last date. I don't think you can call me sitting with you on a steak outside casino much of a date, Harvey. I got better things to do with my time than that. You know, she stood there, my eyes open to the gentle side of her as she looked at me with concern. In particular, she was checking the wound that Lady Werewolf gave me. I knew exactly why she was so worried, too. Wounds from the lycanthropes had a nasty way of infecting you in that way that meant far worse than a long hospital stay or even death. I think it'd be okay, Harvey. Things though, I gotta wonder, look at it in a few days. You don't mess around with that loop girl, you know that. Stood up slowly, and with her help, when seeing that stitches pulled out, she was a decent medic, but using her services instead of going to the ER had its drawbacks too. It's not like she signed on to be a doctor or anything. Where? She looked at the door. Other, I'm reading through some of the books I got. It says a Bishop Dunn told him to bring you here, though you apparently mean to come see me at some point anyway. She looked pensive at that, and I could tell the situation worried her. Actually, I didn't mean to drag you into this one, so it's got enough mystical stuff all over, I suppose. It was inevitable. She crept a while small out, leaned to kiss me, and stood up and went over to fix some kind of drink. Don't you never mind, Mr. Jenkins. Like I said, he was planning to see me anyways. It seemed like I said, I would have been sad to miss a chance to meet the long walker. I paused to put my shirt back on at that. Long walker. She brought 2 containers of liquid over a teacup and a shot glass. She handed me the brew in the cup first, which I dolefully gulped, even though it was rancid as concoction as I'd ever choked down. I quickly threw the shot down after, which helped immensely. Yeah, Harvey, you got a history. And listen to that, right? Stories. They say he's been walking the earth for centuries, looking into dark places, finding the monsters, doing what he can. They say he's been wandering out west a long, long time now, ever since the day started dragging that ghost rock out of the earth. Now I see I'm believing them stories. You got a very, very old soul, Harvey, full of pain, full of save. It was stung to see a tear fall freely down her cheek. Instinctively, I reached up and wiped it away. and she leaned in close and let me give her a reassuring hug. Seems alright enough to me, if a bit strange from my handy. With that sword, I can tell you now that he's been taking those werewolves. I'm guessing they'll be moving on. She gave me a whatever I looked, arching an eyebrow. However, he didn't come here for no Gary. They nothing but all, and then Martha and he for something else. I guarantee. Sorry, guys. I've been all kind of interested in my books, especially the ones about the holy places in the city. Finished getting dressed, looked longly. The whiskey bottle she poured on my shot from, then headed to the door and opened it. What did that my mother's hospital to you? What are you doing here, Richard? Why are you in New Orleans? He taken off his duster and his chainmail armor was sitting around in denim jeans and cotton pullover shirt. His pistol Rick and sword were laying on the table nearby, though I was little doubt he had either in hand and ready to fight mere moments if the situation called for it. I was really hoping he would have. Good, I see you are well. I see you're keen to get right to the point. I respect the direct approach, Mr. Jenkins. All the mimic things much simpler. He closed the book in his hand, stood effortlessly and gracefully moved across the room to replace it on the shelf where it came from. I watched him and couldn't be helped but marvel at the fact that he moved like a 20-year-old ballet dancer, not a centuries-old warrior he was, turned to me and his hands clasped behind his back. A sure sign that she trusted me, or that he at least trusted what I was still a credible threat to him. Either Milady Bunte is far more knowledgeable about me than I imagine, or Bishop McLarty broke his vow, or are you an exceedingly good detective, Jenkins, and know my name. Actually, friend, you may have a problem similar to mine. More people starting to know who you are than you might imagine. At any rate, McLarty broke no vows, got your name from another friend, one who met you when he was a boy. He's the one that asked me to look into while you're in town. Mama about to head edged into that room while we talked, and she was giving him a long, appraising look as she made her way to one of the comfortable chairs of her own parlor and sat down. She seemed to be enjoying something about the exchange. He seemed to be considering my words fairly deeply as he also sat down. I see your point, Jenkins. Perhaps it was foolish of me to think I remain unknown for so long. I ask who that lives here knows me. Maybe later when I'm sure about what your purpose here is, Lionheart. He looked up sharply at that. I would greatly appreciate it if you did not use that particular sobriquet with me, sir. It's not a name I bear with any pride, only shame. Fair enough. I decided to be the only one standing, especially since I was the one who had the most unattended holes in his carcass at that moment was fairly stupid, so I found myself in his chair as well. If someone wants to know why you're in town, you don't have to tell me, but I need to find out one way or another, and since you'd like things to stay simple. He chuckled at that. Indeed, very well, Mr. Jenkins. Lady Bonte shall tell you I'm here to stop the children's crusade. I'm launching anew. Mama Bonte and I just stared at him, then each other, and back at him. Come again? He smiled. It was a patronizing at all. It had the quality of sincere understanding. It shouldn't exist yet. I do, because God and the tempter both have interesting senses of humor. There are many things that work in this world, as you well know. We also know there are many things in which something that should be dead is not. I nodded at that and shifted uncomfortably. Mama just smiled at me. One such thing is Nicholas of Cologne, the shepherd who attempted to reach the Holy Lands with his followers across the Alps. His mad quest was doomed, and all thought he died alongside the last of his followers in their final punch. Instead of the very dark position on Nicholas, treating off his obsession, his mystical gift for drawing followers. He is now called Nicholas the Bitter. I've tracked him for a very long time, and now I'm certain he is here in New Orleans, where he intends to launch a new children's crusade. Only this time he's determined to cleanse the new world of what he deems as corruption and evil, planning to rule in God's name over these lands. I've heard a lot of my time in this business. I've seen a lot too, enough to know I couldn't dismiss what this apparent madman was telling me. I knew I was going to need a few more drinks in me before the night was over. All right, saying I believe you would decide to help you. What's next? We spent the rest of the night making plans. He agreed to lay low, mostly to avoid getting into any scraps with the sons of James. I mean, you do the necessary poking around. He put it away, though. Time to get a boat, I guess. Time to get a boat. It all came down to that Friday out in the harbor. I may not be a big fan of coincidences in the best of circumstances, and it was certainly even a moderately bad circumstance. It was a truly awful circumstance if you really want to know how I felt about it. Whew. I was craving back alley beatdowns by lone shark thugs, but at this point, it wasn't riding the whole disease ship they and most captains would make for port. Then the consequences: get the doctors, get the cargo unloaded. The fact that he claimed to be waiting for something and then insisted there was a disease on board, and smiled entirely of throwing whatever excuse you could to see what would work. Done it enough time to recognize the technique. Then there was the added matter of the last little tidbit I picked up as I made my way back to the docks. Had to do with the registry of the Friars, been stuck in a part of my brain that still held on to all the learning my mother forced on me. Italian, Port of the Origin, according to the stories, and Richard for that matter, that's where Nicholas Children's crusade collapsed when he failed to part the sea for them, so they could walk all Israelite back to the promised land. But it was going down my town. That ship at the heart of it was at the heart of it, which meant we were going to have to get out of here. Fortunately, I had a few friends who fulfilled 2 qualifications. They own boats and they owe me favors. Of course, with the calling in favors, I involved the likely source of a man's livelihood. There are more than inevitable questions, evasions, and the risk of secrets revealed, which actually left the other option. Not someone who can judge the thing. I always lie as usual. Gil's the kind of guy who spent as little time around as possible. He stank, he swore in every other word. He didn't respect his own mother, much less anyone else. Man knew his way around boats. He knew something about getting around with them quietly. Smuggling was more than a job for Gil. It was a way of life. A guy might have a one-way ticket to prison by proving him innocent. In one case, they charged him with where he was actually not guilty. I made enemies of the Capizzi family for me, but it was meant Gil was holding me pretty big, and it was time to collect. He apparently had a patent sense just for a friend, or maybe the guy owed him favors. Gil's just didn't make any friends all that easy because that boat of his almost made no noise at all, even all the engine power moving along. It didn't take long for us to get close to the freighter. There was only a few lights on the deck as we closed in. We caught glimpses of the light through the portals. Though it seemed most of those were shuttered or curtained, it was fairly bright night, but enough that we still had a decent chance for surprise. Gil slid us quietly to the side. We grabbed the cargo's nets hanging down and started the long climb up to the deck. Gil's pulled off. He watched from a safe distance and came back to get us when it was pretty clear everything was over. I was fairly certain he would, since he was actually getting any money for his shovels until I got back on dry ground. We got to the railing and climbed over it, miraculously still undiscovered, even though there were a handful of fairly meaty-looking guys with guns and clubs wandering around and keeping an eye out. Fortunately for us, they all seemed to have more muscle than brains, and he really didn't expect anyone. Richard pulled me closer and whispered directly into my ear, "I know this. I'll find Nicholas. You go find the children." Alright guys, well I'm gonna have to end the video here, guys. I'm about to fall asleep. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see y'all later.